Hi guys, and welcome back to the Teacher Made channel where everything is made by a teacher. Today on our SPED Talk, we are going to talk about 8 things that helped me run the behavior, emotional, self-contained classroom. When I had that classroom about, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. It is my favorite classroom to work with. I had an all-boys classroom, so if you want some tips on how to run your self-contained classroom, or if you're a parent and you want to know some things that you can probably incorporate at home or suggest to your IEP team, that you might want to stick around. Hi guys, my name is Shannon and I am a special education teacher and I work with resource students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. Today we are going to talk about children who have behavioral emotional disorders and how I ran my self-contained classroom. So the first thing that I did was I had a rewards marble jar, and I took this idea from another teacher. So basically what you do is you have a jar, and I had a jar and I had 3 lines on the jar, and what you do is you place the jar where the students can see it, and then on each notch you have a accomplishment that you want the classroom to accomplish. So for my all boys classroom, with the exception of one girl every now and then, my 3 goals for my group was: 1, it was an ice cream party; 2 was a movie celebration; and 3 was a pizza party. So the marble jar reward system worked very well. I know a lot of teachers who are using this strategy. Not only did the boys enjoyed it, but even when there was one student who was had trouble following directions, they would remind each other. So like walking in a line down to the cafeteria, we would use this thing called quiet feet. So the student knew immediately, like, they needed to walk quietly in the hallway and not stump their feet. So they would correct each other on their behavior. They would monitor their own behavior, which is something that we want them to do, which is to monitor their own behavior in the classroom, as well as have them monitor their own behavior in the real world. Number 2, the bank. So we called this the bank. And before I want to go any further, I want to talk about my 2 assistants that I have in my classroom. So if you're watching this video, thank you for my 2 assistants. They are very wonderful. It was 2 women helping me throughout this whole entire process of running this classroom. So like I said, number 2 was, we call it the bank. And this is basically where I had a pocket chart filled with each student's name. And in the pocket chart, we had PBIS, which is a school-wide thing. I'm pretty sure you heard of PBIS. It is a reward system for the whole entire school. So we had dollars. I know the school that I'm working now, we have like tickets from like a teacher or the school principal, but they had PBIS dollars, and they could put their money inside the bank, inside the pocket chart. And then when it came time for the PBIS quarterly, when they could go to the store, they took their money out the bank. Not only did it practice money making skills, but also they practiced math, learning how to count their own money, and just getting ready for those daily life skills and going to the store. So I thought that was pretty cute, very fun. Like I said, we called it the bank. Number 3, small groups. So it was very surprising how I ran my small groups in my classroom. People would ask me how I did it, and what I did was I had 4 rotations. The first rotation was basically working on reading like grammar skills, so like adjectives, nouns, those basic things that we tend to look over when we're writing a story or reading a story, just in everyday life when we talk and we are using words and language. So the first station was grammar. The second station was technology, and they got to get on their iPads and they got to either read a book on Epic or check out some other videos on Moby Max. The third group was one of my assistants. She did small groups. So it was about 3 to 4 kids in a group, and each group I leveled it by their reading level. So I had a high level, a medium level, and then a low level. So in those groups, we did chapter books. In the self-contained classroom with children with behaviors, you may have children who are on grade level and some children who were still performing under grade level. So we did a lot of small groups. We did pretty much every day. Each station was for about 20 minutes, so it took up the whole hour to an hour and a half. The fourth station was working on independent reading, so building that stamina for them reading 20 minutes. And each station that I did, I try to piggyback off of what the students were doing in the regular ed classroom. So by the time we had pushed the student out, they were already accustomed to what was going on in the regular ed classroom, so they can just fit right in to what they were doing, so it wouldn't be a surprise for them when they got there. So don't try to make it, I would encourage teachers to try to, like I said, piggyback off of what the teachers are doing in the regular ed classroom. So like I said, it won't be a surprise or a huge change in schedule for those students. Number 4 is social skills. So I did a lot of social skills early in the morning. I'll drop the link down below. It's called 101 social skills. So we did 101 days of social skills, a lot of cute activities in there, a lot of activities getting them to work together. One of my favorite ones in there, I can remember off the top of my head, was called the kindness card. So in that social skills lesson, they got to write a card to anybody that they want to write to. So in the classroom, I had them write a kindness card to another classmate, and then we'll take about 5 to 6 minutes to share that kindness card in the front of the classroom. The next thing that we did that I implemented was have a behavior sheet, tally sheet, point system. Oh my gosh, they loved it because they say they didn't care, but y'all, like, these kids, they loved it because they would go home and I like this because it had a lot of involvement with their parent. Like, for example, one student, if he got so many behavior point good tally marks, then his grandpa would take him to get ice cream every Friday or every other Friday. So they really enjoyed that. Even when the student had a meltdown, I remember one student had a meltdown because he didn't quite make the point system, but he always said he would work, the next day to get those points, which he did, and he took, a different approach to how he would, do better in my classroom. So the point system, I encourage you to have some type of behavior system, especially in the behavior self-contained classroom, because it's pretty much what, all it is, right? The next one is a sensory corner. So I had a tent inside my classroom where the students could work on calming down, basically self-regulating their own behavior and just working to regroup and then bring themselves back to the large group. So in that tent, they could listen to music, they could listen to reading a book. I had a student, he would draw in the tent. Some other students, they would work with silly putty or anything that was sensory. So I try to have a sensory corner, but y'all, they loved that tent. I liked it too. So the next thing that I implemented was how am I feeling chart, and I'll drop the link down to the one that I had created. So basically we did a bunch of how am I feeling charts. We also had an autism point sheet that I pulled off of Teachers Pay Teachers, and just a lot of different things about how they felt that day, and just how they could self-monitor, self-regulate their own behavior. So even though if they start out the day not so good, they can turn around by the time lunch came and take those good behavior points home on their point sheet. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the cool down room. So basically this is a room that you may see in some schools where if the child was having a huge meltdown, we would take them to another room that was very close to the classroom where they could cool down. In our cool down room, we had basically a weighted blanket, and then we also put in a punching bag so the student could utilize that to get out their frustration, their anger, or anything that they needed to do. So like I said, these are just some things that I implemented, or me and my assistants implemented inside the classroom, like I said, I missed that classroom. Right now, like I said, I'm teaching resource for kindergarten through 5th grade. Also, I dropped down in the link box some social stories, and I will be creating some more social stories for children with behavior emotional disorder. And I'll drop down in the link box some resources about my blog and some more things that you can look at. Thank you for listening and watching this channel. This is the Teacher Made channel where you can get all your resources and tips to run a classroom for parents, teachers, guardians, whoever may need help working with children. Bye, guys.